Sometimes, the scariest moments in life don't come from monsters or shadows, they come from the people we love slipping away without explanation. That's what it felt like in the Carter household. A young boy growing weaker every week, a family losing hope, and a mystery no doctor could solve. Everyone thought he was dying, until one small act of kindness uncovered the truth hiding under his bed. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us spread more real stories about compassion and humanity here on Kindness Action. Now, let's get into the story. The Carters lived in a bright white house at the edge of a quiet American neighborhood. You know the type: perfect lawn, big windows, and a front porch made for summer nights. From the outside, everything looked fine. But inside, a storm was brewing. 10-year-old Andrew Carter, once full of laughter and energy, was now pale and tired. He barely slept. He barely ate. And no one had any idea why. His father, Mark, paced the halls every night, too stressed to sit still. His mother, Evelyn, wiped tears from her eyes when she packed his lunchbox, knowing he probably wouldn't eat it. They had taken him to every doctor they could find, family doctors, specialists, even therapists, but nobody could explain why Andrew was fading away. Finally, out of desperation, they hired a nanny named Maria. She wasn't from a fancy agency. She wasn't expensive. She was simply kind in the kind of way that showed in the way she knelt to speak to children and smiled at strangers in the grocery store. She had a gentleness that made people feel safe. The first day she arrived, she walked straight to Andrew's room, knocked softly, and entered. He was lying in bed, small and tired, staring at the ceiling. She didn't start with questions. She didn't start with instructions. She sat on the edge of his bed, smiled, and said, "Hi, Andrew. I'm here to take care of you. But I'm also here to listen." Nobody had said that to him before. For days, Maria tried everything to make him smile: board games, stories, gentle walks outside, but Andrew stayed quiet. He wasn't rude. He was just afraid of something. She could feel it. One evening, while Andrew was finally asleep, Maria began to tidy his room. She noticed something strange. Andrew's bed skirt looked slightly lifted, as if something had been pushed underneath quickly and carelessly. She knelt down, lifted the fabric, and froze. Under the bed was a small wooden box, open just enough to reveal what was inside. She pulled it out gently and lifted the lid. Inside were a few objects: a black ribbon, a photograph of an older man with kind but sad eyes, and a worn-out journal with pages sticking out. The moment she opened the journal, she realized it wasn't Andrew's handwriting. It belonged to someone else, someone older. Each page held a message, short but deeply emotional, like someone was speaking from the heart. And at the bottom of many entries, there were little notes that looked like they were written recently, by Andrew. Maria sat on the carpet, heart pounding, reading entry after entry. It was a journal written by Andrew's grandfather, Mark's father, who had passed away a year earlier. They had been incredibly close. In the journal, the grandfather wrote about loneliness, about growing old, but also about kindness. He wrote about how important it was to listen, to care, to give softness to a world that often felt sharp. It was his way of reminding himself to stay gentle. And Andrew had been writing replies. Replies full of fear. Full of sadness. Full of questions he had never asked anyone. Little sentences like, "Why did you leave? Why does it hurt so much? Will I ever feel happy again?" Suddenly Maria understood. Andrew wasn't dying. He was grieving. Deeply. Quietly. Alone. Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a child refusing to eat because food reminds him of the person he shared meals with. Sometimes it looks like sleeplessness because nights feel too long without the voice that used to tell bedtime stories. Maria didn't yell. She didn't panic. She simply closed the box, placed it gently back under the bed, and wiped her eyes. The next morning, she sat beside Andrew as he stared blankly at his breakfast. She didn't push the food toward him like others had. Instead, she placed her hand on his shoulder and said softly, "I found your grandfather's journal." Andrew froze. His little hands trembled. Maria continued, "You're not sick, sweetheart. You're hurting. And hurting doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The boy began to cry, not loud, messy tears, but quiet ones, the kind that had been waiting months to fall. Maria wrapped her arms around him, holding him like someone who understood exactly what he needed. It was the first time in months that Andrew let himself feel anything at all. Over the next weeks, kindness became the medicine no doctor had prescribed. Maria read the journal with him, page by page. They talked about memories, about missing people, about how love doesn't disappear just because someone is gone. The Carters, shocked but relieved, joined in. For the first time, they talked openly about their own grief. They realized they had been trying so hard to stay strong that they had forgotten to be soft. Slowly, Andrew began eating again. Sleeping again. Smiling again. And the tiredness that had once covered him like a heavy blanket began to lift. All because one woman chose kindness over assumptions. She didn't treat the symptoms. She treated the heart. And the truth is, kindness doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as listening. As sitting down on the floor with a child and saying, "Talk to me." As reminding someone that they're not alone. Andrew's story teaches us that kindness isn't just something we give. It's something we unlock, hidden under beds, buried under pain, waiting to be found. So today, wherever you are, choose kindness. Someone around you may be suffering quietly. And your small act, your calm voice, your gentle question, your warm smile, might be the thing that brings them back to life. Because kindness doesn't just heal others. It changes all of us.